Well, when I was a lad, there was a rich landlord in our part of Ireland, and he owned half the countryside. His name was Dorsey. William Edmund Fitzgerald Dorsey, Justice of the Peace, Member of Parliament. I'll never tell you how much land that man had in his own right. You could walk for a day without leaving it. Bog and oat field and pasture, game preserve. He was smothered in money, and he lived in a house as big as the Auditorium Hotel. Many's the time he'd ride by our place, and my father would raise his head from the kish of turf and touch his hat to the great man. And once or twice in a month, the dogs would come yelping across our farms, with lads following behind in red coats, for this Dorsey was a great huntsman. Bad scram to his evil face. He had the reputation for being a good landlord, so long as the crops come regular. He was violent, 'tis true, and leave as not would cut a farmer across the face with his whip for crossing the trail of a fox. But he was liberal with his money, and that's a trait that covers a multitude of sins. He'd have the gentry from miles around to his big house for balls and parties and hunting meetings, and half the shopkeepers of the neighbouring town lived on the money he spent for the things he didn't bring from London or Dublin. But then one year, there come a flood of rain. And the next year, another flood. And the year after that, there wasn't a humper turned up that wasn't black and blue to the heart. We was better off than most, and we suffered our share, God knows. But them that was scraping the sod bare, living from day to day, perished like the cattle in the field. Then come the writs and evictions. The bailiffs drove out in squads, seizing cattle and turning people into the road. Nothing would soften the heart of Dorsey. Haven't I been liberal with the people, he says. Haven't I put up soup houses and distributed blankets when the weather was cold? Haven't I kept the shopkeepers of this town alive by staying in this cursed country? And if I'd done what my wife wanted, I'd be running around Europe enjoying life. I'm a resident landlord. I ain't like Hill Duff that leaves his estate in the hands of an agent. I was born here, and here I'll die. But I'll have me rights. Now these here people owes their rent, and I'll get the rent or the farms if I have to call on every regiment from Bombay to Cape Clear and turn every oat field into a pasture for me cattle. I stand on the law, for I am a just man, and I ask only what belongs to me. But every night there was a party on the hill, and the tenants trudging up the muddy road with the peelers behind them could see the lights pouring out of the big house and hear Divine's band playing for the dancers. The shopkeepers lived in clover and thanked the Lord for a good landlord and one that stayed at home. But one evening, a poor man by the name of Shaughnessy that had tramped across the hills from Galway just in time for the potato rot hid himself in a hedge by the roadside with a shotgun. A night when the landlord was coming home alone. The Irish are poor marksmen, except when they fire in platoons. But that big man looming up on a black horse in the moonlight could no more be missed than the Rock of Cashel. He never knew what hit him. And the following month, a jury of shopkeepers hanged Shaughnessy so fast it made even the judge smile. I suppose he deserved it. But if I'd been on the jury, I'd have starved to death before I'd give the verdict, because Dorsey was a fool. He might have evicted 20,000 tenants and lived to joke about it over his bottle. But 'twas the music and the dancing and the lights on the hill the Galway man seen when he come trudging up the muddy road with his baby in his arms that done the business for Dorsey.